Hello guys, how are we doing?
All right, mate.
Well,
Yeah,
Steve,
good.
it's your second podcast, but Joan, it's the first time you've been involved in one.
That's
how have
right.
you been?
I've been fine. I'm okay. And I've been looking forward to it anyway. So
Good.
here we go.
It's good to see you both. I can't think when the last time I must have seen you.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Probably with Northern Show, yeah.
Northern Show.
Northern Show.
Yeah.
Yeah. February time.
Yeah, end of February.
Wow.
Back when the world was normal.
Ish.
Yes.
Ish, yeah, sorry, yeah, it was on the... So it was our last show before things
God,
went a little bit weird. But we won't talk too much about that. We always talk about that.
Yeah, I feel like
the good old days.
we've
Yeah.
kind of spoke about lockdown and COVID with everyone that we've had in so far, and ourselves, and I think we're all a bit sick of hearing about it, aren't we?
Yeah, and I think people are getting bored now, aren't they?
I think so.
Yeah, we know all about it.
They want to hear about something else other
Fishing.
than that, don't they?
That's what we want
Yes.
to talk about, is fishing.
That's
Too
right.
right.
Yeah, absolutely. So I know despite everything that's going on, it hasn't stopped you when you've actually been allowed to leave the country, of course, and in the country for that matter as well. How's it been for the past few months for you then, Steve? So let's talk sort of after we were allowed to go fishing again. What were your plans?
Well, it's been all right. I mean, to start with, we wasn't allowed to travel anywhere. So so I was doing sort of local stuff, Thorny Weir, Lake 3 at Thorny Weir. And that was good. You know, it was nice to actually do some UK fishing for a change. I hadn't done them really properly for ages. So quite enjoyed that. It's really nice just to get back in the swing of that. But then as soon as we was able to travel, that was it. The van was loaded and we was off. And really since then, we've been doing it non-stop, you know, one trip after the other. And it's been okay. You know, it's been okay. There's a lot of people sort of concerned about different things, about travelling. As long as you're careful and you're sensible, it's absolutely fine. And of course, once you're at a lake in the fresh air with no one around you, you're as safe as anything.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, where's a better place to be than the lake during all of this going on, I suppose?
Well, still got to be, you know, sensible about it because Joan, you know, she's high risk. So we're not just jumping in the van and saying, you know, 2 fingers up at everyone. But, you know, we're giving it a lot of thought and being sensible, but it's absolutely fine. And we've really enjoyed it.
Yeah. So you mentioned Thorny Weir. I know we spoke briefly earlier, but yeah, you really enjoy it because UK fishing these days isn't something you really dive too much into, but you really enjoyed your time on Thorny Weir.
The UK fishing is always the bit that misses out. You know, I love me fishing of all sorts, and, you know, UK is very much a part of that. But, you know, travelling away, you always get the trips booked up in advance and the diary gets full. So before you know it, there's not enough room in between to do the UK stuff. Well, lockdown gave us the chance to actually plan some UK fishing and sort of put it into action. And it was really good. You know, Thorny Weir, I love Thorny Weir. And to actually put in a few sessions, one after the other, build up a bit of experience, it was really good, you know, and it was quite tough to start with. I often find that when I come back to UK fishing after doing a lot of fishing abroad, that it takes a little while to get back in the swing of it, you know, tactics, methods and all that. They're all a little bit different to fishing a session abroad. So it took a little while to get back in the swing of it. But once I did, I loved it, absolutely loved it.
Yeah,
you know, and
some incredible fish as well. For those who haven't seen, I think we put it on our YouTube as well, didn't we, Dan?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah, this one. So I think this was, it's on Steve's YouTube, if not ours, your time, sort of a little bit of English fishing. It's some incredible carp as well, like jet black fish.
they were real crackers, weren't
Yeah,
they?
you
You know,
didn't-
not monsters, you know, by today's standards, they're not big carp, but, you know, it's a Nash thing, isn't it? You know, it's not all about the size of the fish. It's what matters, you know. And at the time, those fish were so dark and scaly, and that was what mattered.
And a lot of those hadn't really been fished for that much, really. The lake on the video, it kind of gets forgotten a little bit.
It's really surprising that in the middle of the Colne Valley, on a day ticket water that gets rammed sometimes, that there's actually a little lake there that hardly anyone knows about. You know, the amount of people that have got in touch with me since I put that video up and said, you know, where is that lake? And I said, well, it's Lake 3 at Thorny Weir. And they said, oh, I know Thorny Weir. I'd love to know where that little lake is, though. It's like in 04 they still don't know that lake, which is so weird, so weird.
Yeah.
And I went for a ride yesterday on my bike, like I do when I'm home. I get out on my bike and have a ride around. Went down, there's no one there. No one. Every swim was empty.
Really?
So,
Get on it, Alf, quick.
Too late, probably.
Was there? There's an interesting story about what made you go and fish and target that water over lockdown. Was there a big one that you knew about in there?
Yeah, if it's still there or not, I don't know. All I can say is I didn't see it. I don't know anyone who has in the last couple of years, but when it first started getting noticed, I mean, it's been there all the time, obviously, the lake, and there was a few originals in there, but just people didn't bother with it. And there was one guy, a friend, Birdie, he went on there and started having a go and started seeing 2 or 3 good fish. And he caught this one, 36 pound it was, and it was absolutely gorgeous. It was jet black, uncaught virtually. No one knew anything about this fish, but he'd seen it. And it was just incredible. And I thought, God, I'd love to have a go at that. And that was what got me looking around the lake. And I never saw that fish, never saw it once. So whether it's still there or not, I don't know. But when I was looking, I was seeing enough other fish that I thought, oh, I wouldn't mind that one. Nice linears, a decent common. In the end, I caught all the ones that I saw. So, I couldn't have done much more than what I did, but I didn't see the big mirror. But it was what got me there in the first place. So,
yeah, he had Birdie to thank for that, really, then.
Absolutely, yeah.
And obviously, outside of the UK then, and I think we're going to have to mention this moment because it's an incredible moment, Steve. You've become, and correct me if I'm wrong, the first person to catch a 50 from 15 different countries. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'm the only one to have done it. Funny enough, the guy who organised the trip, and he was fishing next door to us, he's a good friend, Christoph Kuderman. He's the closest one to me. He was on 13, I was on 14, so he's only one behind, so it's touch and go. But that one put me on 15, so there's a little bit of breathing space now.
Bit of a landmark, yeah.
yeah, only first one to do it anyway. So.
Yeah, incredible achievement. I think that is.
Yeah, so I was listening to the podcast from before. I wasn't obviously there, so this morning, just to refresh my memory on what you guys had spoke about, I listened to that, and I remember you saying in that you were on 14, you might be going to Bosnia next year, and that could be 15, and you went and did it.
Yeah, I mean, it was, we got there in the end because the trip should have been earlier in the year, but that got cancelled because of everything that was going on, and got put back to this one, October, and almost got cancelled again because some of the other teams from different countries, from Poland, they were worried about the travelling and having to get COVID tests and all that. And so it almost never happened. It was only because we were so determined to go that he said, all right, I'll keep it going. So, I was just pleased to get there. I knew that once I got there, I had a real good chance of getting the 50. I thought all I've got to do is get there, and I think I'm going to do it. And that's how it turned out, really. We got there, got the job done.
Yeah, nice.
Incredible achievement, that. I mean, I've caught £150 that I like to imagine catching.
Well, I remember Tommy saying he doesn't think he could even name 14 countries back then, let alone go and catch 50s from those countries. So, well done, mate. A brilliant achievement.
Yeah, I mean, that's the hardest thing now is trying to find other countries. I know Christoph is coming to England next year, and he'll get one. He'll get one over here, so he's going to, he's on my tail all the time.
Yeah,
so.
Good friendly competition, though, if it keeps you motivated.
Absolutely, yeah.
Exactly, yeah.
Where's he heading in the UK to get his 50?
Well, it's the big fish water in Cambridge. So that's what I mean. He's going to get one. He'd probably get the 70. Do you know what I mean? He's an incredible angler, Christoph.
Yeah.
He was sort of listing the waters that he's been to where he's caught the biggest fish in the lake on his first trip, and it's like so many times he's done it.
It's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah,
His book's on here as well. Oh, yeah, on the church.
Yeah, no, he's a good guy. You know, he helps me, and you know, I'll help him if I can. So it's all friendly.
Good. So obviously, for the main piece of this podcast is going to be about Cassien, and you've had an incredible journey when fishing Cassien, and even we were just watching the video earlier, weren't we, Dan? The one that Dan edited. I'm sure a lot of you are listening or watching this will have seen it before. A fantastic edit, and just sort of summarise your time on Cassien. And we're going to cover everything we can about Cassien today. Before we dive into the ins and outs and everything that happened, because Cassien's quite well known these days, but for the people out there that don't perhaps know it too well, how would you describe Cassien to someone who's never heard of it, never seen it before? I mean, what is it? What does it look like? How big is it?
Yeah, I mean, what makes it special is hard to actually pinpoint because you have to be there and then you get it. But, you know, as a lake, it's about 1,200 acres, 1,300 acres, and split into 3 arms. You've got a central area, basically like star-shaped almost, with 3 points. You've got a north arm, a south arm, and a west arm coming off. It's a dammed valley, so there's a riverbed running all the way through. The dam is at the top of the north arm, and that's where the deepest areas are. It goes down to 150 foot up there.
Blimey.
But you've got fairly deep water all the way through in the riverbed. And it's, how can I explain it? I mean, you've got the bridge going across the central part of it is probably the most famous bridge in carp fishing.
Very iconic.
Yeah, and it's crystal clear water, lovely crystal clear water. A lot of it is deep water. You haven't got to go out far in places before it gets to 100 foot, depending on where you are. But every swim, every area is different. You never know where the fish are going to be. They move around all the time. And just because you caught fish in an area the year before doesn't mean they're going to be there again, because they never are. You know, they're always on the move. So it's really, really interesting fishing because it's always changing with the water levels. The water levels go up and down because it's a working dam. They sell electricity off to other countries, Italy and everything. So the water levels can go up and down very fast. So areas that you're catching from, say a month ago, you could go back and they'd be out of water, bone dry. So it's constantly changing, constantly evolving. But there's just something about it. The atmosphere, the scenery, the fish, the water. It's the whole package, really. And, you know, people have asked me so many times over the year, what is so special about Cassien? And I just say, well, it's hard to explain, but when you go there, you will get it. And they do. You know, they come away and say, yeah, I see what you mean now.
How big is it? It's a big old bit of water, is it?
Yeah, it's between, at full level, it's between 1,200, 1,300 acres. I forget.
50-something mile around, isn't it?
Yeah, it's what they reckon, don't they? Something
Because it is so, there's so many little bays, so it's in and out and in and out. So I guess that mileage around the edge...
Yeah,
it's heightened because you're almost going back on yourself again and again and again.
It's quite long, you know. As a lake. I mean, it's wider in the North Arm. The North Arm's the biggest one, but the actual arms are quite narrow. You know, in the West Arm, you could actually cast to the other side in
Can
quite
you
a few.
really?
Yeah. Cast on the other bank, you know, but it's long and narrow. So it's you when you're fishing, you're fishing like sections, and you can't see what's happening in the rest of it.
Right.
So it's...
You can get in a boat, right, and disappear when you find a swim, and you don't see anybody. It could be a week, 2 weeks, whatever. It is lovely.
Just like Castaway, just go and find your own little bit of paradise. Because it is as well, south of France, a lot of the year, very warm, lovely weather, blue waters, sandy beaches.
Well, it's the millionaire's playground of the world, isn't it? And when you get down there, you realise why. You know, the other side of the Alps, you know, it's you've got the cleanest air in Europe coming off the Mediterranean. And and it's just that little strip of land, you know, Monaco, Saint-Tropez, Nice, Cannes. It's beautiful down there.
Exactly.
Should we go? When we
Every time
I sold it to you.
I say it every time.
would
Or every
love
year.
it.
I'm going this year. I'm going this year. And every time I get chatting to someone about it, I just go, I have to go next year. And I never get round to it. I need to do it. I need to do it.
It is. It is. It's a mecca. It's beautiful. It really is lovely. It's
Because
just,
I guess a lot of people think it's a passion of Steve's, but it's not. It is.
No.
Both of you just love
Oh,
going there.
absolutely,
And
both of us.
So together, how many years have you been going there now?
Well, I started a couple of years before, you
Yeah.
know, Joan, before you
we
came for
met,
the first.
Yeah.
But we've been doing it 30 years now,
30
haven't we?
years now. Yeah. I mean, it's been just fantastic.
Older than me. I wasn't born. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
it's-
that's when he'd make me feel really old.
yeah. And then for 18 years, we went in the December, for the all of December into the new year. We went there and it was lovely. And I mean, the weather, come 4:30 in the evening, when it starts to get dark, it's very cold, you know, and you think, oh, and you look out and there could be a lot of frost and it really is cold.
Mm.
You get up in the morning, the sun comes up, and with a matter of 5-10 minutes, it's gone. I mean, we've seen people Christmas Day swimming.
Really?
And it's, yes, and the odd times it's been 25 degrees. We've had to sit in the shade.
I've never had that on Christmas Day.
Right.
I've never had that
Really?
on Christmas Day.
It is absolutely, it's
Well, it
lovely.
can be all sorts, really, can't it? You know, because we've also had Christmas trips where it was minus 18
Really?
at its worst, and that was horrible.
So this is what I was thinking. Because I knew you guys went a lot over that December and that winter period, and I was wondering, was that because the weather is that much warmer than in England, and that the chances of catching are so much higher? But it's not. It can be right up and down. Then
It could be all sorts. A lot of it was rain as well. You'd have weeks and weeks of rain in December. That was like the wet period.
right.
But it was just such a nice time to be there. A lot of it was that it was so quiet and peaceful in December. You know, it'd still be busy September, October, November, but it was like people couldn't get holiday that close to Christmas. They had a Christmas holiday, and before that they had to work.
Yeah.
And start of December, the lake would be empty. And after being busy for months, the fish relaxed, they'd come out to play, and
Yeah.
it was so nice. You'd be in a swim and not see anyone else for a couple of weeks. It was really nice time to be on the lake.
Amazing.
So back then, was it 1984? Was it when you first?
86 first time I went.
86. Okay, so this is pre-internet, so there's no information.
Oh, yeah, it was
about
certainly
it.
pre-
So,
It's well pre-internet,
so
wasn't it?
how does it? I can't imagine it these days. If you want to find information about something, it's just easy. Just bang it in on Google, and there you go. Everything you need to know, really. How do you hear about that? Because I know you were sort of fishing around the Darren Valley and everything around there.
Yeah.
Is it through word of mouth that you just hear the stories come about this place? Because I can't even picture how do you find out about it?
Well, it was magazines. It was all magazines in those days, and I was a member of Carp Society and the CAA. And the CAA mag, I remember it coming through in September 1984, and there was a picture on the front of Paul Regent, who had fished there with Kevin Maddox. Just fished a few afternoons, and he had caught 3 fish, I think, up to mid-30s. He had a picture of this 35-pounder. And inside was like the expose, the story, saying that there was 50s in there, and, you know, a lake record of 70-something pound. And first of all, I just didn't believe it. I thought, you know, it's too good to be true. You know, there's this lovely lake in the sunshine and all these great big fish in there. But gradually, a few people, Rod Hutchinson for one, you know, but a few people I knew as well, got themselves down there, and they did catch 50-pound carp. And I saw that, and I thought, you know, I've got to have some of that. And the final thing that made me go was Kevin Ellis when he caught that 76-pounder. And I saw that when it came through. It was on the cover of Angling Times, which was, in those days, they were the weeklies, Angling Times, Angler's Mail. And it was on those, and I looked at it and I thought, God, that's fantastic. And there was loads of people on the lakes I was fishing sort of saying, well, that's not a proper carp, you know, it's a freak, it's not real, because all we were used to was doubles and 20s with the odd 30. and all of a sudden he was £176. And they couldn't comprehend, you couldn't get their heads around it. Do you know what I mean? But I looked at it and thought, God, I want some of that.
Yeah. Such an iconic shot as well, where he's hugging it. And
still is today, isn't it? It's just one of those shots you look at, and it summed up that period, really. That, but like I say, there was no internet. There was nothing in those days other than a map. You had a map, and there was a bit of blue in the south of France, and that was it. We didn't know about France. We didn't know about any other lakes. That was the only lake that was known to us outside of England. So, you know, we just sort of thought, well, let's go. But blimey, what a job it was, really.
Yeah, it's not exactly just the other side of the crossing or the ferry, is it? It's the south of France as well.
There's so much of our audience now as well, which half of our audience won't be able to comprehend how the other half will look at this, but half the people who listen to this probably just cannot even imagine having to drive using a map, because it's not a generation they've ever grown up. Like, I can remember going on holiday when I was younger and my mum and dad using a map just to get to Cornwall, the arguments they'd have because my mum had sent her the wrong way. But to do it to the south of France, to this little bit of blue, it must have been
no sat navs.
Struggling in itself.
I mean, that's the thing. I could never explain it now how it was back then, because I'd never been out of the country. You know, I had no idea that I'd ever be going out of the country. And then all of a sudden, I'd only been driving a few months. I'd literally passed my test a few months earlier. I had my first car, which was old Mark III Cortina then, and I just had this urge to go. But, you know, it took something like 3 days to get there. And
really, yeah.
Got lost. Missed the turning for Lyon, which I thought, oh, there'd be other turnings. Well, there wasn't. We went straight in the centre of Paris. And
you're right in at the deep end then, like, never been abroad.
Yeah. Driving around the Champs-Elysees.
Yeah, that is thrown right in at the deep end, that is. But it just shows your enthusiasm and your excitement to get out there if you'd never left the country, and then let
just
alone
that drive, you know. I mean, you'll hear it said by a lot of people, you know, if you want to do something enough, you'll do it. And it's true, you know.
Because there's a lot of people now, if you said, I'll give you, you know, I'll pay to go to Cassien, you know, I'll pay for it, you're travelling and everything, but you can't use a sat-nav. People would just be like, I can't, it's impossible.
No internet.
It cannot be done.
Do it old style.
Yeah.
Old banger, just a map.
Yeah.
And there you go. Off you go.
And people just say it can't be done.
Yeah, I mean, it's looking back now, you know, it was a real step into the unknown. It really was.
Yeah.
But a real adventure, you know, a real adventure. You know, now people go to France every year. It's a lad's trip away and it's no problem. You just get on the tunnel and off you go. But back then it was a big deal.
I think I'd love that though. Can you imagine just not knowing, like, it's not like your destination is 1 mile away. It'd just be like, this corner, are we there yet? And then looking at it's a little bit sad knowing that you can never experience that again, because everything is now a known location to a degree. But I just can't imagine the thought of just turning up to a place you can't see if you're getting close to it. You don't know if you're getting there yet. You've got the big map over the windscreen trying to find it. So it sounds incredible. It
was all of that, really. And, you know, yeah, all right, we'll never have that again. But I was there and I did it, you know, and I'm so pleased that I did make the effort to go, because, you know, that it was a one-off time, a one-off period that'll never be repeated. But, you know, I did it. So
I guess it's also those early trips probably influenced your whole carp fishing life from there on out, really, because you, as a carp angler, very much have gone that way in terms of, like, you go to Europe and that's you, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I'd planned just to go there once. I thought I'd go to Cassien, say that I've been there, you know, got the pictures of the blue skies, and that's it. Move on with my fishing at home. And until I actually got there and fished the place, and then, you know, that was it. I thought, God, now this is what carp fishing's all about.
Yeah.
It was just amazing, you know. After fishing Brooklands and Darenth, you know, they were good lakes and all that. I didn't know any different. That was my carp fishing. And then I saw what carp fishing could be, and there was no comparison. So, yeah, that was the start of it all. Start of a new life, really.
But even then, when you go down now, down to Cassien, we know exactly where it is and how to get there. It's a doddle. We could nearly do it blindfold.
Yeah.
But when you come off the motorway and then you come on the little road by the side of the lake, so whenever you come round and then you see this lake, this blue water, beautiful, and your heart just goes boom, 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 boom. It's just, and you think, we do, don't we? We say, oh, look at that. Oh, heaven.
Yeah, and that's after all those years.
All those 30 years.
That's when you know you're doing what you want to in life. When if you
Yes.
still get that feeling, you've got it spot on.
Yeah, it still gives us the butterflies every
lovely.
time.
That's brilliant.
Really is.
And the other thing is, it's the only lake we've ever been to in all these years where we never want to leave. Like most places, you have a week at a lake, and by the last day, you think, oh, well, fair enough, we've had a good time, back home. Cassien, it's like, we could just...
Shall we stay? Shall we do a few more nights?
It's lovely, yeah. You'll have to come down with us sometime.
I'll take you up on that offer. I will definitely take you up with that offer.
I mean, in the summer is obviously the best time. I mean, the Christmas is lovely. Because when we have a Christmas on there, we'll find a swim, and Steve will go and have a look up after we're set up, and he'll find a small Christmas tree. There, he'll dig it up and bring it down, put it in the swim, and we decorate it because we've taken our Christmas cards and Christmas presents and all the food to cook for Christmas, and that's it. When we've finished, when we want to come home, he'll take it back and he'll put the tree back in the hole.
And then the following year, it's got a little bit bigger, and you take it out again, and
and then you can't put it in the cortina anymore.
Well, it could be a different place the following year, so we'll have a different. But it's lovely, isn't it?
Yeah,
Sounds
very
it.
special.
So your first trip then, once you did finally manage to get there, some 3 days later. So 86, yeah, Steve, 1986, your first trip.
September 86, that was.
So on the fishing side of things then, how did it go?
Well, I've always had this stubborn streak, and people were saying, like, don't bother with the North Arm. It's too deep. Fish don't go up there. Carp don't go up there. And I just thought, well, that's the first place I'm going to look. I just love trying to prove, people wrong. I don't know why. It's stupid, but I do it. So I went up the North Arm, and I took a mark. I mean, this is how it was in those days. All I knew for finding depths and features was a marker float. That was what we used. So I got off on the bank, cast it out, and literally got fed up with waiting for the lead to hit the bottom. I was just standing there. It's never going to hit the bottom. And now I know that spot out there is about 90 foot deep.
It's a long time going like that on your rod. 1, 2, 85, 86.
But I quickly realised that was going to be a waste of time. And so all I did was look at the surrounding land, and if it was a steep drop, then it was going to be like that under the water. And if it was a sort of steady, sort of shallower drop into the lake, then chances are it was going to be like that as well under the water. And, that was sort of how it panned out. I just found a nice area where it shelved off a bit shallower, nice sandy beach and all that, and that was where I fished. And, after fishing like 10-acre sort of pools and all that, all of a sudden I was on a 1,300-acre lake, just dropping in on a whim sort of thing. But literally an hour after sort of casting out that evening, I had my first run, so
crazy.
Yeah, it was strange. I caught my first. I had 3 runs that first night. Missed one totally, lost one in the snag, and landed a 22-pound mirror, which was like my first Cassien carp, first carp outside of England.
Yeah, that must have felt good, considering the style of fishing and everything, being able to go abroad. And
when you first set your eyes on it and thinking, I'm about to cast my rods, did you think at any point, I've bitten off more than I can chew here?
In the back of my mind, yes. But, I just thought, get the rods out and see what happens, really. And
you're not going to go home now.
Well, no, I was there and just see what happens. If they're not there, maybe they're somewhere else. But I always put it to people, because there's a lot of people said over the years, like, how do you cope with the big water and all that? And I always say, well, how do you think a beach angler copes with the sea? You know, they go down to the beach and they cast out. They're never worried, oh, what if the fish aren't here? You know, they just fish.
Yeah.
And come what may, sometimes the fish are there, sometimes they're not. And, you know, 1,300 acres is nothing when you put it like that.
Yeah, you're right.
But they were there, you know, they were there. So, yeah, caught that fish and, you know, I got off the mark a lot quicker than I was expecting to wait a week or something for a fish, and I'd got one straight away. So, yeah, it was a relief, you know, that whatever happened, I'd caught one. You know, I'd gone there, hopefully to catch a carp. Anything after that was a bonus. So it was like relief to get one and then just move on. Soon realised how different it was, though, in terms of snags, crayfish, depths, things like that. I'd never fished a lake with crayfish in before. And the snags, literally every time I tried to reel in, I snagged up, lost everything, every single time. So I actually stopped fishing during the day because wasn't getting a bite or anything during the day. So it was just a waste of 4 leads and 4 rigs. So I just cast out in the evenings. And it was easier when I hooked a fish, actually, to get everything in. And soon realised that I needed a boat as well. So, you know, it was a real sharp learning curve. I mean, my rods were what I was using in England. They were 11 foot 1 3/4, and I was using them on Cassien.
Imagine that now if someone went down to Cassien with a 1 3/4 pound rod.
Well, you just wouldn't even. I mean, they're light for barbel fishing, aren't they?
Yeah.
But yeah, you know, it's amazing when you think that I just went with what I had. You know, what else could you do? I didn't have money to buy a new set of gear and all that in those days, so you just make the best of it, don't you?
Yeah, just go and learn. Like, just do it.
Yeah. And, you know, the thing was that it was a sharp learning curve. And, yeah, I didn't have all the echo sounders and things like that, what you just take for granted now. But you can get round it. You can find roughly what the depths are just by counting the lead down and things like that. You know, sort of 15 to 20 seconds meant that it was sort of 20 to 30 foot, you know, roughly speaking. But you knew it wasn't 90 foot, you know, so you knew you was fishing in the sort of reasonable depth. Peanuts, you know, I mean, in those days, went there with boilies, and they weren't lasting an hour with the crayfish, you know, they were just eating them all. So peanuts were all right. They lasted a few hours. So, you know, everything was evolving. And by the time I'd been there sort of 4 or 5 days, I was getting in a pretty good rhythm of fishing. And I caught 2 personal bests. So I had a 39 mirror, and then I had a 43 mirror. And that was like the first 40 I'd ever seen on the bank. And that sort of blew my mind, really, seeing a 40. And
it was maybe at a time when there really wasn't that many in England.
I think there was probably 2 or 3, no more than half a dozen, certainly. Yeah. I think there'd been, Chris Yates had the Bishop out of Redmere at 51, I think. That was the only 50 that had ever been caught, and yeah, a handful of 40s. So to actually see a 40, have it in my hands, it just looked enormous.
Yeah.
It looked enormous at the time, it really did. Yeah, it was.
And you mentioned that you went out there with the intention of just going, having a try, seeing what it's about, and then no plans to return. But we know all too well that wasn't the case. So how long were you there for that trip, Steve, the first trip?
10 days. I think I fished for 10 days that trip.
Okay, so when you left, was it at that point you knew I'm coming back straight away, or did you get back home and then decide that you're going to have another go one day?
It was when I got back home, really. I went to see my mate who I was fishing Darragh with at the time, Peter Noonan. And, you know, I got down there and I was showing him all the pictures, and I realised how excited I was getting about relaying all the stories to him. And I said to him, you know, we've got to go. You've got to come with us down there. And I persuaded him, and like literally 6 months later, in the May of '87, that, you know, we was heading back down there in his little minivan.
So that's all it was, 6 months, and you're on your way again.
Yeah, and that was it. Me and Peter Noonan. I mean, the minivan was a story in itself, because it was the worst car I've ever been in, I think. I should have known better, really, because when he pulled up outside my house, he gave me this great big screwdriver, and he said, "You've got to poke that through the grill at the front and hold the starter motor together while I start the engine." And I should have known then. And I advised him to get like the AA 5-star cover, which he wouldn't buy anything, so he didn't get anything. Before we'd even got to Paris, the fan belt had snapped, so he was in the garage. Oh, God. It just went on and on and on. In the end, we was overheating so many times that he took the cap off the radiator so many times, it just snapped off in the end. Literally just snapped. He had the whole thing in his hand. And the engine was shaking that much that it actually ripped the exhaust pipe off its brackets, broke the brackets, and the exhaust pipe went through the petrol tank. So,
can it go any more wrong in terms of getting what? What did you do? Well, how far down into France were you when this has happened?
It was a constant thing all the way down. We was doing a few miles, then overheating, waving lorries down to get water, stuffing rod sleeves in the cap to stop the water coming out. We actually tied the exhaust pipe up with a rod bag. But, you know, there was no sort of thought of turning around. We was going, and that was it. And it got us there.
Incredible. Yeah.
And it was a great trip, actually. We started, we decided to go into the West Arm. You know, we'd done the North Arm, and I said, well, you know, if things go wrong, I know a swim in the North Arm where we've got a chance. But we went to the West Arm, and we struggled for 3 days. For 3 days, caught nothing. And then I always remember this guy just rowing up from the spawning bay. And for the first year it was open, it used to be closed, like a reserve. And he said, "You done any good?" And I said, "No." He said, "I've had 2 small commons today, like double-figure commons." I thought, he's caught fish. And I said to Pete, "We've got to get down there." You know, he's had carp. Bearing in mind that mid-double is still, you know, it's a carp to us. It's whatever. So we got down there, and luckily there was no one there. There was no one there at all. So we set up in this area in the spawning bay, which was open. Got the rods out. I had a 28 mirror that night, which got out the sack, and no one believed I caught it. The sack was just empty in the morning.
Steve's telling lies again. What's he like?
Yeah, there was a couple of people there. I mean, a couple of guys that I became really friendly with in the end, Pete Jones and Dave Brown, Travolta. And Travolta just said, "Yeah, right." You know, he weren't having none of it because they were struggling as well. But the next night, I had one take again, and it was a monster. It was a 61.5 pound mirror, and you know, that was just humongous. It was, I couldn't believe what I was looking at. Do you know what I mean? It was just,
if 6 months before a 40 pounder blown your way to then just jump to 61 pounds.
Yeah, I just couldn't believe what I was looking at. It was absolutely humongous. It really was huge. But the best bit in the morning was when Travolta come down. They were only day fishing, so he come down and we went over to them. But he was there quite early. He was there before we was awake. And little did we know he had a 30 pounder in the sack, but he was like keeping it quiet to surprise us.
Right.
And we went over and he said, "Oh, come on in, don't tell me you've had a 40 this time and it's got out the sack." I said, "No, it's quite a bit bigger than that and it's still in there." And he went, "Ooh." You know, so the big sort of, well, I've had a 30 sort of thing. It just
soon
went out the
trumps
window.
that with one twice the size.
It was amazing. But I remember Pete looking at it, you know, and it was all teamwork. It was a lot of teamwork to get there. He looked at that fish and he said, "God, I want one of them," you know, like you would. So I said, "Well, all I can do is give you the spot." Basically, the spot where I caught that from. I said, we was rowing the baits out. First time I'd ever rowed baits out in my life. I'll row your bait out. Give us, you know, put your bait on everything. I'll row it out to the spot I had that from, drop it there, and see how it goes. And next morning he had a 54 mirror.
Oh wow, I didn't know that. Know that.
So
unbelievable. So after that horrible drive down with his van breaking down every 3 miles. You had a pair of absolute whackers under your belt.
It saved the trip, basically. You know, we had a few more. No other real big uns. You know, I mean, they were still good fish for them days. 30s, 37 Pete had. I had a 34, I think. But you know, we had a big one each, which made the trip absolutely. Yeah,
and again, going back to that time, not just a big one, but absolute monsters for the time.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
So was there a lot of English lads fishing at this point? You said those other two lads, did you bump into them down there, English guys who had also done the same thing as you?
Yeah, exactly that. I mean, the strange thing was we was there for 2 weeks, and the first week was really quiet. Like I say, we got into the spawning bay, there was no one there. The following week, it was like a whole load of people descended on the lake, and there was a big group of Germans come down. There was quite a few Germans getting on there very quick. But English as well. Jeff Shaw, which was a name from the past. He was quite a big name in those days. He was there with a group of guys. There was quite a few different people coming and going, all very keen to get in where we were. They knew we were catching. So it was like a mass brawl over who was going to get the swim after us. This Hell's Angel got it in the end.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he was just bigger than the rest. So, yeah, but yeah, it was wow, just amazing experience. And then, of course, we had to drive home. It took us 5 days to get home.
I bet that didn't matter. No, after that.
It didn't once we got home.
Yeah.
But not joking, I mean, we came down our road. We had to have the windows open because the car was full of smoke. It would only go at a full whack in second gear, and the exhaust pipe literally fell off at the end of my road. We had to walk back and pick it up, and it never went again. It stopped outside my house, and he had to get it towed away a week later. Never went again.
Unreal. As if that had made it all the way down to the south of France and back, and then that was it. It was over.
All those miles, and then on the last mile,
it was just died. Yeah.
I've done you well. I'm done now.
Exactly. Yeah.
It did the job.
Was happy.
It's a shame. You want to get, well, it's probably just a tin can somewhere now, but get that restored and go for the.
Yeah.
I was pleased to see the back of it.
Yeah, I'm sure you were. Yeah. So you got back again this second trip now, and by this point you must be fully converted by fishing in Europe. Was there any other plans to go elsewhere, or was your heart just set on Cassien?
I had a trip to Holland because on the second trip with Pete Noonan, we'd bumped into 2 Dutch guys who were also fishing down there. And they started talking about fishing in Holland. I'd never caught a 20-pound common, which seems daft now, But in those days, there weren't many in England. There just weren't many. And they said, come over and fish the 20 canal. You'll get a 20-pound common there. So later that year, did go over to Holland. So... that was really the start of sort of venturing out, meeting people from other countries, making contacts, and sort of venturing out a little bit. That was it for the first couple of years. And then Joan come on the scene, basically. And one of the first things you said to me, wasn't it? Are you going to take me at Cassien? Can we go at Cassien?
Yeah, because I saw the picture, the photograph, I thought, that looks lovely. In the blue water, and I thought, I'd love to see that. Plus, you had been telling me all about Cassien, hadn't you? Explaining what it was like. It was
just such a big experience in my life that, tell anyone about it who would listen, basically. And I was a bit worried because in those days there was no night fishing or anything like that. If you were careful, you could get away with it, but you couldn't have bivvies and bed chairs and things like that. And, I was a bit worried about Joan, because I hadn't been away. We'd just started sort of seeing each other, and I thought you'd want all the home comforts, and you said, no, just get me there.
Perfect. Dream woman. There you go.
Yeah, that's what it was like. We didn't have a bivvy. We had nothing. We had a lilo. That was it. And one, like a sleeping bag that didn't zip up, but it laid across the
Like a blanket.
The lilo, yeah. I mean, it was, and I mean, you'd go to sleep on a night time, and you wake up, and then, I mean, it would be soaked with the dew. But I mean, then 5 minutes it was dry in the sun. I mean, it was lovely.
Did you go, Joan, before they allowed night fishing, or was it only?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, well, it was 1990, I think, wasn't it? The first
1990 was the first trip. Yeah.
first trip,
It's like,
Okay.
and the night fishing didn't come in till 94. So yeah, we had those first few years where there was actually no night fishing, but you know, there was almost like a truce that as long as you didn't make it obvious that what you were doing, you know, if you went down there with bed chairs and bivvies and cookers and all that, they had to do something because it was so obvious that you were making them look silly. But we just used to lay on the beach looking up at the stars at night. And the rangers used to come around on horses and all that.
Yeah,
Used
and
to
wave.
just
Oh,
wave
really?
to us.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, you know, okay, we know what you're doing, but it's fine.
Yeah, because you're not taking the mickey out of
Yeah.
it. Yeah. Nice.
So, I mean, we were happy with that, weren't we, really?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
God, it was lovely. Really nice, yeah.
But when they did allow night fishing,
Well, when it first came in, it was quite late in the year, wasn't it? Or no, it was early in the year, but we hadn't been. That was it. And obviously, I was working full time. We was both working full time, weren't we? We didn't have much holiday. You know, obviously had a summer holiday, and you know, you get a Christmas holiday, and all of a sudden, there was a chance of Christmas fishing, wasn't there?
Yeah.
Thought,
Oh, that's it.
yeah, we had a holiday, and the year before was the final straw. We used to just fish in England. I'd done the Fox Pool a few years at Christmas. The year before, we'd done Yateley. We'd done Yateley Pad Lake, and I think there was 13 people fished the lake that week, Christmas week, and there was only 5 carp in the lake. You know, and you think, what are we doing this for? And then
Knowing what you know as well.
oh God! And then night fishing was open on Cassien, so I said, let's go to Cassien. Do you know what I mean? Let's get on the ferry, go there for a week and a half, 10.
It was lovely, wasn't it?
Absolutely brilliant, wasn't it?
Nice,
Totally different feel to it, you know, because I always sort of looked at Cassien as like a summer trip, you know, a summer holiday trip and all that. So going there in the winter was quite different. I remember being on the ferry and it was all grey and sort of drizzly outside, and but it was still the sunshine at the lake, wasn't it?
Yes,
We pulled up and
yeah.
it was still t-shirt weather.
Lovely. Amazing.
And was it, obviously the first time you went must have been daunting because of the size of the lake. It's so much bigger than you'd ever been. When you started doing those winter trips, especially that one where you said, I'm going to go in December and night fish for a weekend, was that also quite daunting, knowing that it was, you know, the sort of depths it had and that sort of thing?
Yeah, it was daunting in a different way because I'd had the experience of sort of fishing in the summertime when it was warm and the fish were jumping and all that. All of a sudden we were confronted with a winter lake where there was nothing showing. It was like a flat, calm surface, no sign of anything. And the other thing was that all the restaurants were shut where we'd normally park. We'd normally base ourselves in Chez Pierre's restaurant, park in his premises, and all those were shut. That was shut. So we were sort of limited to where we could fish because we had to have the van with us. You know, like parking and access on Cassien is very restricted. Most places you get to by boat. This time we didn't know all of this. We just turned up and found all this out. So what we did was just fish by the bridge where we could park the van, you know, behind us. We started off one side, didn't we? The normal side where the plateau is. And you went for a walk, didn't you?
Yeah.
Remember you going for a walk and coming back and saying, have a look at this side. It looks really nice.
Yeah.
And
Then we moved.
yeah, we moved to the other side, didn't we? And
And that was it. And you had that lovely fish.
yeah, it wasn't easy. Caught 2 fish that first time. First one was £32, and the second one was a real nice £47 mirror. And it was on the coldest morning of the trip. The mornings were freezing cold. Just woke up, there was like ice in the bottom of the boat, and just saw the middle tip. I had 3 rods. You was only allowed 3 rods in those days. Just saw the middle tip pull over, and the reel was frozen solid. So I literally had to leap out and just grab the rod before it was dragged in, sort of thing. And we went out in the boat, didn't we? And like epic battle and all that. And there was this lovely long 47-pound mirror.
Yeah.
Oh, it's great, wasn't it?
All, like little sparkles on it, wasn't it? The tail, it was lovely.
I'm sure we'll put the photo up. But is that the one? Yeah, I think you've got purple hat on, long
That's
thing.
That's the one.
Snub
Yeah.
nose. I
That's
do
it.
know
Well
it.
done.
Yeah,
Yeah.
That's an
That
incredible
was it.
fish.
That
One
was-
that you went on to catch again, I think.
I did catch
Yeah, I
it again,
remember.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
God, you done your research.
We only watched it a couple of hours ago, so I did.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
did remember, but
Yeah.
there's been so many. It's hard to keep
God.
track sometimes. But
Yeah, it was an amazing moment in what was a very tough trip. You know, it was only 2 bites, and we could have easily not had a bite that trip. So we didn't see a fish anywhere. You know, it's just trial and error. And so to get that one, a good one as well.
Yeah.
You know, it was a big fish in those days,
course.
47. That we knew what we was doing for Christmas in
I was going to
future.
say that was it. That was the eureka moment, as it were, in terms of like we can come down here and we can spend our Christmases here, and we can, get results as well.
Absolutely.
That was it,
yeah.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's some task. I mean, approaching a lake of that size in normal conditions, let alone when it's however cold it is, like you mentioned, it can be really cold. But yeah, job done as far as you were concerned. And also your Christmas trip was when you first started taking the camera with you, with the handy cam.
That would have been, let me see.
I was that a little bit late.
The camera actually come 2 years later. There was 94 was the first year of night fishing.
Okay.
We went back the next year in 95 and ended up fishing the same swim. And I remember saying, well, at least we get a 30 and a 40 from here. And I caught a 32 and a 48.
It's always good talking it on the bank.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then it was the following year, 96, when we took the camera for the first time.
Was that just a hobby? Did you do that for more of a hobby, or did you actually do that with the intention to say, do you know what, this would be brilliant to look back on in a few years' time?
Paul, really, wasn't it? Your friend Paul, it was his video camera we had.
Yeah, it's hard to remember why we actually did it. It was the guy who I was working with at the time, Paul Sanders, Glum we used to call him, because he was quite miserable.
He was lovely.
Yeah, he was as good as gold.
Nicest man out.
And he said, why don't you, he said, I'll lend you a video camera. Why don't you sort of video it? And I thought, yeah, why not? So it was, we hadn't done it before. I'd never videoed anything. But he'd sort of run through how to use it and all that. And yeah, I'm so pleased we did it, because it was something that it would have been easy not to have done it. You sort of think, oh, why
Because
video?
we went up the north, didn't we?
Second point that
Yes.
trip was, yeah.
And then we went up when you went in towards the dam when I took some of the video.
Yeah, well,
Is that the same year? Or was it?
no. No, not 96 was when we stayed on the second. We just stayed on the second point for a whole month. That was the first real long trip.
Oh, it was the year after we did it.
Yeah, that was the following year when we was right
So
up the north.
This is why I mentioned the handy cam, is because again we watched the incredible film that Dan made again, and it's just such a feel good atmosphere, and you'd never associate. There's both of you just having a great time at Christmas. You spent the whole Christmas period over there with the footage. I'm really, really glad you took that camera for the sake of the film as well, because, and for that again, I mentioned it briefly earlier, but any listeners haven't seen that film, go and watch it. Yeah, because you'll see.
Plug there.
Well, I was propped against a tree, to try and keep it steady. And you were out on the boat.
Yeah, no, it's incredible footage.
So you say, was that the first long trip over Christmas? 4 weeks, a month, you just said?
Yeah, that was basically the first time we'd been for like all of December.
Right.
The 2 previous years we'd still been for like 2 weeks or whatever, the Christmas holiday. But this it wasn't enough.
I was going to say, it seems like you enjoyed it. Next year more. Next year we go more.
Okay.
And you went on to, you said, for 18 Christmases.
Yes.
18
years we did it, yes.
18 years in a row.
Yes.
Blimey.
Every
One after the
year,
other.
the night fishing was allowed. We were there at
We were there.
Christmas.
Yeah.
Was there anyone else on the lake, out of curiosity?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Not in the early days, it was mainly Germans. And we were known as the English because we were the only English pair there.
Yeah.
It was just amazing when you think about it. But like, none of the other English were like there. They just weren't there.
No. We made some lovely friends, didn't we?
Yeah, but the Germans were big on it. They were very quick. They always are very quick on everything, and they were there in numbers. But we were the only English that were doing it really consistently
And doing it properly. I mean, you mentioned earlier about the taking the Christmas cards and the trees and that sort of thing, but the Christmas dinners were cooked on the bank, all the presents were taken,
That's
if
right.
I'm right.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Well,
I only
Christmas
had the one
dinners were
cooker.
legendary.
Yeah, I mean, we used to go up to Leclerc and because I don't like turkey, but he would get a piece of turkey and I'd get one like a beef hash, and that was it. But I'd peel the potatoes and the carrots and do all the vegetables there, and put them on the side with some tin foil there. Then I would cook the meat, and that was it. And I would boil the kettle, make some gravy, and we'd have a lovely Christmas dinner. Then after that, we would have some Marks and Spencer's mince pies with some custard. That's what we had. That was our Christmas dinner.
I'm hungry.
Yeah. And that was
that-
just a little cooker, just a little
Yeah,
fryers.
it was amazing what
Yeah.
she used to do.
I was going to say, I think I've got a bit of footage that will lay over the top of you. There's one of you sat there and it's got all the pans and that on.
Yes.
And
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah,
I think
yeah.
there is a
Yes,
bit of
yeah,
footage, and
yeah.
we'll lay over shots so people can see it as well.
Oh, it was just fab, wasn't it?
Well, it's
Yeah.
a special time. I mean, I suppose what we haven't mentioned as well, that both of our birthdays are in December. Mine's on the 8th, Jones's on the 4th.
Right.
So it used to encompass all of that.
Okay, so you used to have both your birthdays, then Christmas, then New Year's.
Yeah, and then
and
come back to reality.
Yeah, but
Uh-huh.
I mean, what a time to be out there and have a great chance catching some.
Well, that was the
Exactly.
thing. The fishing was very good, and it was almost like you're fishing for a different set of fish in the winter. The summertime, you'd go there and you'd get bites, and you'd catch 20s and 30s. If you got a 40, you was doing really well in the summer. In the winter, you would get 40s every time. If you got fish, you would catch 40s in amongst them somewhere. But they were totally they were different fish. They were different fish to what you was catching in the summer, and the average weights were much, much bigger. So it was good in that way. But it was just such a lovely time to be there. It's waking up on the lake on Christmas morning, because you know what Christmas is like when you're at home. The streets are quiet, everyone's quiet. Well, the lake was like that. All the roads were quiet, silent, and there you are just opening the bivvy door and silence.
It was
It's just
lovely.
Christmas Day on the lake. It's brilliant.
Because I guess, like you say, a lot of the places as well. It is such a big lake. It's 50 odd miles around. A lot of those spots, they are only accessible by boat. So it must have been so quiet. And that, you're even away from cities and the closest town. Everything, you're just in the
Everything
middle of nowhere.
Really lovely.
It
Never
was
saw anybody.
one of the big things, and it still is one of the big things about fishing Cassien or somewhere like it. It's one of the very few places where you can actually go and just get away from people, and you haven't got to see people every day. I mean, I've fished some lovely places through the course of a year, and commercial, public, and all sorts. Most of them, you've got someone who wants to see you every day. Like if you go to a commercial water, the lake owner, nice as they are, they want to be in your swim for an hour every morning, finding out what's happened, having a chat, having a cup of tea. And best intentions in the world, I'd rather do without that.
Yeah.
I'd rather them just give me a phone number and say, look, if you need anything, call us, otherwise we'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
On Cassien, you might not see someone for a week or 2 weeks. That was perfect.
Just lovely, And you didn't have to go into a set swim. You could go anywhere under the trees.
Yeah, it's not as if
On
you're
the
pre-booking
bank.
a spot, is it?
Exactly.
You've got
Just wait. I mean, we've Roger and Kerry swim that one there. we had the bed chair. It must have been on that, don't know what you call a slant, but we had it propped up with bricks.
Right.
Yeah, I saw the image actually in your book, Steve, of where you because they were on a really steep side that didn't
really
have
steep.
Yeah, and like you looked like you were in like the jungle sort of thing. It just looked so varied, the sort of landscape. But I just remember I think it was you, Joan, just sort of stood there and then just like quite a sheer backdrop to it. And I was thinking, fair play for
he was literally on a 45-degree slope, and we had to have bits of rope tied to the trees so that when you got off the bed for a run,
you had
grab the rope to stop you. Otherwise, you'd just go flying down
into the water.
Yeah.
That's commitment. That is.
Oh, hey, it's just lovely though, isn't it?
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Yeah, really. Just an experience, that you might see on a film or the television, and that's adapted, that's made up for that particular time. But this is real life.
Yeah.
Just, it was like Tarzan and Jane.
I'm gonna get my girlfriend to listen to this because I think we've painted it in like a fabulous because she's never come fishing with me. But I say, how about this? No people about
South of France.
South of France. Yeah.
Blue, clear water, and she could swim in there. She could go on a pedal, or she could go on one of those things with like a canoe thing.
Yeah.
Anything you can do, it's absolutely. You can lie there in the
Saint-Tropez
sun.
and Cairns just down the road.
Oh, that's what I tell her. That's what I say where we're going, and then just say we'll just take a slight week detour,
And then just sit behind rods because that sounds much more
we
appealing.
walked along the beach, Saint-Tropez, and we all the way around there, and you see all these. See yachts. They're like ships. They're like Queen Mary's, Queen Elizabeth's, you name it, massive.
God.
and then you can look at and go, do you know what? I'm having a better time than you because
exactly.
I've got
Probably,
Cassien.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
Exactly,
Yeah.
that's
Sodgy
right.
yacht.
Yeah.
yeah.
God, how lovely. She'll love it. She will love it.
Oh, yeah. I'll try and convince her.
Just speaking of how quiet it was, it did actually trigger my memory on a story you told me once when a stranger walked into your swim when you're in the middle of nowhere. Is that right?
That was so weird. So weird. It was New Year's Eve, actually.
Was it?
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve. We was right up the top of the North Arm, weren't we, on Ollie's Point. And it was, you'd sit out by the rods, as long as possible. It'd be dark at sort of 4 or 5 o'clock. So we were sitting out there till about 7, I suppose.
Yeah.
We're just thinking about sort of getting inside, zipping up, because it's getting cold. And one of the things, like, we're always listening out for sort of the animals, wild boar and all that, it's a
Lovely.
some people are terrified. We love them, so we're like, if they're there, brilliant. And all of a sudden, the bushes started rustling, and nudged Joan. I said, "Yeah, I think there's boars going," and it was getting closer and closer, and just waiting for him to come out from behind the bushes. And this old boy staggered out,
Really an old man.
yeah, and sort of, hey, what's going on? We're miles from anywhere. We're not on like near a road. We've gone 2 or 3 miles up the lake in a boat to get there. There's no paths and nothing. And we were so stunned. We just looked at him, sat there in the chair, and I don't think he realised we were there. And he went to walk off down the bank, and he would have gone through my rods. So I got down and I said, whoa, stopped him. And, it's French, and speak a bit of French, but not great. Just sort of saying to him, well, where are you trying to go? Where are you going? And he was pointing like up the lake, round the edge. Well, not being funny, there's no way he was getting round there. It just wouldn't have happened. And, I said, he wasn't drunk, but he wasn't with it. Sort of
Right.
He was a bit sort of here and there. And maybe he was drunk, I don't know.
Didn't smell
Early
it.
start New Year's Eve, maybe.
Maybe, yeah. And I said, well, you can't. I said to you, I'm going to have to take him up to the road. Well, the road is like in the far
that.
distance up the mountains.
Yeah.
Like probably 2 miles through
The bushes and
forests.
And steep as well, not
Steep
just
as
very
well.
steep, very steep.
I knew there was a little house on the way up. So anyway, I said to Joan, like, you got to look after the gear, and I'm going to have to take him up there. I can't leave him. So I'm walking up, and we got about 300 or 400 yards, and I heard one of the alarms going, like it always does. As soon as I'm out to swim, one's going to go off. So I thought, oh, well, you can deal, I knew you could deal with it. So carried on walking. We got to this little house that was about 500 yards up, and I said, is this where you're trying to go? No. Kept pointing. Oh, no. I thought, well, this is it. I'm on my way now. I've got to get him to the road. And there were times, literally, we're clawing out, climbing up like just sheer walls of rock, round trees and through land, with dogs barking and all that. And it must have been, well, good, at least 2 hours.
Really?
I got him up onto the road.
Yeah.
And I said, look, where are you going? And he tried to pull, he wanted me to go with him.
Right.
I said, no, I can't. I've got you here. I said, I've got to go back. So that was it. I felt guilty, but I'd got him to civilization. There was cars coming up and down. And
I was going to say, you might have felt guilty, but he was in a lot better state on the road than he was
Yes.
down on the banks.
he would have been in the lake.
Yeah.
100%.
On the lake, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And all I was thinking was, like, I could hear this alarm in my head,
So that wasn't a big
it was a lot easier going back downhill,
Yeah.
pitch black and everything. But I got back, and Joan was still standing there with the landing net with his fishing. She said, well, I didn't have a torch. I couldn't do anything.
It was just pitch black.
Yeah.
Did it bring good karma though? Good deed of the last good deed of the year. That would have been. That should have set you up nicely.
Yeah, you had a nice,
Yeah, it was nice, wasn't
nice
it?
mirror, 30 odd pound
Yeah,
or
it
something.
had like the flower on, didn't it?
Yeah.
Like on the side, like a little flower with the scales. It was nice, very nice.
So on the subject of fish then, at this point, you're becoming quite the Cassien veteran or as such. You must have seen quite a lot. And being the lake that it is, it's very big and a lot of fish. But did you start to know the fish stocks? Was there any targets you had at all? Or was it just a case of fishing for whatever came along, or was there...
No, absolutely. I'd really sort of got into Cassien. I was following it. And, there was a lot of sort of captures that we didn't get to know about, obviously. People from other countries, Holland and all that, we wouldn't always get to know about them. But we did get to know about like a lot of the big fish that were in there. And yeah, I was so channeled into Cassien at the time. Yeah, I knew all the fish, and the weight gains were incredible. Like we was used to sort of 3 or 4 pound in England being a good weight gain. Well, some of the Cassien fish would grow 10 pound a year and things like that. They'd become big fish very fast, but they would also die quick. That was the first experience of that, where they'd really grow onto like 50, 60, 70 pound fast. And you think, blimey, where's this going to end? All of a sudden they're gone. Mm-hmm. But then another one would come along, and Cassien's still to this day, it's like that. It's still the same. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, in those, obviously the Ellis fish was the first big one that any of us knew about. It's still the lake record, that Ellis fish. It's still the lake record today, yeah. When Dave Walker caught it, it was its last capture. He had it at 77, I think 77 and a half, and that was its last capture, but it's still the lake record today. But then, yeah, there was other fish after that. Matilda.
Half moon.
Half Moon was one of the originals. That was one of the big ones, wasn't it? Obelix wasn't. It's still got the 70 pound, but Banana. There's been lots of different ones over the years. Always struggled to catch them. I've caught some of the big ones at lower weight. The second biggest fish that Cassien has ever produced was one called Timotei that got caught twice at 75 pound odd. I caught that one twice. I caught it on a Christmas trip and a summer trip up to sort of 55. So yeah, I caught some of them, but I dearly wanted a Cassien 70, and well, to this day I've never caught one yet. Still plenty of time.
Plenty of time.
Yeah. Get one.
One of the fish we did see in the video, which it was an incredible fish, was was it the big Lin? The
I don't think it was the big limb, was it?
There was. No, it was the smaller of two sort of big ones in there at a time. There was the big one, it was called Matey, whatever that means. It was French name, Matey. and it was a gorgeous fish. It had a real high back on it, and it was a perfect linear. And that came out anything up to sort of mid-50s, I suppose. And there was another one that wasn't far behind. It came out to just over £50. And, yeah, caught that one. Funny enough, we were trying to make a video with Simon Crowe, weren't we?
Yeah.
And it was really quite hard work. Crowe didn't know Cassien as well as me, and with all the best intentions in the world, he thought the more rods that were out, the better. So instead of just me and him going, it ended up 4 people all fishing off one point. He said, we've all got to fish together because of the filming. We've only got one camera. But I said, it's going to kill the swim, all them lines. No, we've got to fish like that. More lines, more chance and all that. Anyway, nothing happened. So as we come home, I said to Joan, we'll go back, just us. So that's what we did. Just me and Joan took the camera, borrowed the camera. It was Glum's camera again, I think.
Yeah.
Good old Glum.
Good old, he was great, he was.
He's dead now, bless him.
Yeah, he was brilliant.
Yeah, lovely man.
But yeah, we went up to, Roger and Kerry's, the 45-degree slant.
Yes.
Yeah, and caught straight away, didn't we?
Yeah.
And the last one we had, I think 6th or 7th fish, was that linear at 49.
Exactly.
Yeah, 49, mate, 49 and a quarter.
Yeah, that was an incredible fish.
Yeah, it was. It was a nice one.
Was it Matey's mate?
Matey's mate.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's brilliant.
Yeah. It was one that was on the wanted list. It was one of those. There was probably about 20 or 30 fish that I would, say 20 that I'd really want to get my hands on, and that was one of them. Mm-hmm. So we're only there once or twice a year, so it's not like we're on it every week. So to go there once or twice a year and catch them, some people did catch them, but that was one that we caught anyway.
Yeah, God.
So yeah, it was good to see that one.
Exactly.
And then Crowe turned up, didn't we? And we never caught a thing again after that.
Rods out everywhere.
Yeah, never got a bite after that.
Yeah. We had plenty of pigs though, didn't we?
Loads of pigs. Yeah, he was terrified of the pigs. Wasn't he?
He's
He
not
won't
now,
thank
but
me
he
for
was
telling you all this.
Oh, really?
It's only public knowledge to loads of people now,
there.
Steve. Yeah.
But it's true, whatever it is, it's all true.
Yeah.
So.
No, he packed up in the middle of the night, didn't he? Come up to us. I said, he must have had a bit. I could hear the oars coming. We were in the bivvy playing cards. I said, that's Crowe coming. He must have had a big one. And he pulled up, his eyes were out on stalks. He said, I've packed up, my swim was full of wild boar.
And he had moved because of the wild boar, because where he had his bivvy, which was along from us there, was a path where the boar go down to have a drink.
So it was right on the route down to...
He was on their little route. And
Yeah,
and he frightened them off, but they kept coming back because that was their little path,
Yeah.
And he was sort of blocking it off. So, yeah, it freaked him out.
Hilarious.
Better than any bears or... Well, I know there's no bears there, but I know there's a few venues in Europe now where you could... So, it was even the Eurobax one, wasn't it?
On Bled. We've got some on Bled.
No way.
Yeah, not far. Yeah, only just over the back of the hills
Over the
there.
back, on the hills,
They got bears there.
And wolves.
Wolves as well, yeah.
Let's stay clear of there.
You won't see them.
Yeah.
Too
No, they're
far
not round
away
the
from
lake.
you. Not round the lake.
Yeah.
No, you're all right. Safe as houses.
Anyway,
Really.
special fish. Obviously, Steve, you caught your fair few, and I'm sure up to this point you'd caught a fair few as well, Joan. But there was one capture in particular for you, Joan, that was unexpected. The way that I've seen it being described and through the video, because Steve wasn't there at the time, were you, Steve? Yeah. So I'll let you tell the story, of course. But Joan, your incredible £60.
That one. I thought you were going to ask about the other one, but that's all right.
Yeah, let's talk about the £60 you had.
Well, that one, we were up the south arm, weren't we? And you had to go back, I think, was it for a battery?
Well, it was the first time. Up until then, we'd always fished the North Arm, hadn't we?
Yeah.
Christmas was Christmas in the North Arm. Yeah. And we just decided to go in. We said we'd go in the South Arm for a change, just somewhere different. And we had loads and loads of rain, didn't we? And it was unbelievable how the water levels would come up at Cassien. And it was, I think we'd set up, and then the second day was when the real rain hit us. And all through the night, literally you could see the water coming up on the bank. I mean, you're talking about 1,300 acres of water, but you could see it coming up. And I had to move everything back 4 or 5 times. It was just every time I moved all the rods back, half hour later, the water was up to them again. And in the morning, it was like devastation. There was gear everywhere. You know, it was just like boats floating around the lake everywhere. And it'd come up probably 6 foot in the night.
Jesus, yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of water.
Yeah.
A lot of water.
Wouldn't have want to have been sound though at that point then, if anyone is in there.
Well,
yeah. And in front of us was all the trees and the small birch trees and that there where the water was up. They were actually in the water itself, you know. Anyway, the battery had gone.
Yeah, it was the solar panel, wasn't it? And but Pierre's son Philippe said that, "Oh, come and see me in the morning." It was actually the water coming up was. It's when we found out how good it fished when the water come up like that. It really sort of seemed to turn the fish on. So we'd caught a few fish that night. You know, I remember having a 32 and a 39 or something. Well, we still had them in the sack, and I said, "Well, I have to go and see Philippe." Rode off across the lake to the other side to walk down, and got collared by it was Lee Picknell who was running the trips at that time.
Yeah.
Bumped into him, and I couldn't get away from him. And in the distance, I could see Philippe coming out of the restaurant and driving off. I thought, oh, no, I've missed him after all that. So I thought, I might as well just go back. So I'd only been gone probably 40 minutes from actually leaving, rowing across to actually coming back.
Yeah.
And as I looked across, I get used to seeing all the lines out. I thought, oh, there's one missing. I thought she's had one.
Yeah, well, he had just gone. And I thought, right, the sun was out. I mean, it was lovely. You wouldn't believe it. You know, it was the same place. So I thought, right, so anyway, I washed my hair and I sat on the chair. And anyway, the rod went off. I mean, and it was one of mine, the rod. Anyway, it went off. So I picked it up there. But I had to get it through all these trees, and it was here and it was there, it was everywhere. Eventually, I got it through and we had the net on top of the board, so I grabbed the net there, put it in there, and put it back across the board, and just left it out. And so I sat down. I thought, and I was reading a book.
Did you know how big it was at this point?
No, I just had it
casual as anything, just slot it in the net.
It was in there. That's fine. It was in the net. It's all right. That's fine. And then Steve came back. He says, "Oh, you've had one." I says, "Yeah, it's in the net."
Just all casual,
so
casual,
and I just thought, the first thing you do is go and have a look, isn't it? So when I picked up, Jesus Christ! I said, do you know how big this is? Oh no, I've had just a fish,
Yeah,
it's in the size of it.
Yeah, I mean, it was just I had got the fish in. That was more important to me through all these trees and bushes, So
yeah, I mean, it was a job and a half because, like Joan said, where the water had come up, it was actually covering a lot of ground where all these bushes were growing. So it was a boat job, 100%. It was a boat job to get out beyond them to get the fish. Well, I had the boat.
Not for Joan, it's not.
So yeah,
net will travel.
Yeah, I mean, amazing that got it in around all of that, but. Yeah, that was it. Yeah, we got it out, and 60 and a quarter, wasn't it?
60 and a quarter pounds. What was your biggest before then, Joan? Had you?
It was 43.
Oh, so
that was a story in itself. Yeah, we've actually bypassed that one. Yeah.
Yes.
Well, we definitely want to hear that.
Yeah, we'll jump back onto that one in a minute then.
Yeah.
You want to hear that?
Oh, 100%. So this 60-pounder was an incredible fish, first of all.
It was lovely, yeah.
But and
really nice.
At the time, the women's world record.
Yeah, first woman to have a 60-pounder. What
an achievement!
And I think, and there was a French who had done that, wasn't it? Checked it. This.
Well, I mean, we sort of had the records more than anyone because I mean, it was only like me and sort of Carp Talk and. People who had records had a big fish list in those days. And who knew? It was only like Carp Talk were the only people that knew about captures worldwide. You know,
Yeah.
So as far as you know, it was the biggest fish to a woman's rod in the world at that point.
At that time,
point.
yes, the first
Yeah.
one. Yeah.
Incredible.
And you didn't even know it. You were
No.
reading your book. It's
Again,
just like-
we were looking at the footage earlier on,
Yeah.
and I was just literally shouting at Alfie, going, "Does that not make you love carp fishing?" It was just everything. The old Rod Hutchinson
Yeah.
hat,
Yeah.
60 pound in the
Yeah.
backdrop, and it was just. I got really buzzed about it.
It was good.
it was fantastic, wasn't it? It was a brilliant trip altogether.
Yeah.
You know, brilliant. But obviously that topped everything else.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it?
Yeah. But then we moved on.
We did, yeah. We moved 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
And, you know, we caught all the way through that trip. It was it was probably, apart from right at the end, it's the best winter we had.
Yeah.
You know, because we
Yeah,
both
had a lot of fish. Really.
we had a lot of fish, and we caught from everywhere. And they were good fish.
was
And
nice.
it was just lovely.
And plenty rain.
Loads of rain.
Had loads of rain, yeah.
Tell us about this other one then.
Right.
You were gagging to tell you the story.
that was one where we were up the North Arm, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was a couple of years earlier, wasn't it?
Yeah. And we had been up,
We'd been right up the top. We'd started off right up the top on Ollie's Point and picnic table, I think.
picnic table. We had looked at the picnic table
But
there.
it had gone quiet anyway. It had gone quite dead. So we decided to have a move, and it was busy. It was as we come down more towards the bridge, we realised how many people were there. We were dying to find a swim, and the German guy called us across. Sasha, do you remember that?
Yeah.
He wanted to chat, and I just wanted to get on and find somewhere. And as we were chatting to him, I looked across, and the first point, which it's quite a nice swim, that was empty. It was one of the few it was the only place that was empty. Everywhere else had bivvies on. So we just went across there onto the first point,
Yeah.
and thought, well, what can we do? It's as good as anywhere. It's the only place we're going to get. And
I like that part. I liked it then, and I still like it now, don't I?
so, yeah, absolutely. But the first thing you used to do in a new swim, I'd be unloading the boat, and Joan would go off exploring, you know, for all the little nooks and crannies, looking for wild boar prints and, you know,
Yeah.
whatever. It was just what you used to do,
and
wasn't it?
sort of clearing up, like where you see all these tissues where the people had gone to the toilet, you know, and it was always pink toilet paper. I mean, we never ever had pink. But I used to think, well, because I'm a woman, if people who were walking down, or the French, they would think it's me.
Yeah.
Or, anyway, sorry. Anyway, we had a look around there, and I thought, right, and he was, unloading the boat, and I was clambered up there was a little ledge, and I come to get this bit of a rock, and I had my wellies on, and I just sort of went off there in my foot, and I had this searing pain. It was just, like electric shock. I thought, so I just sort of lay there. Anyway, I couldn't move my leg, I couldn't move. So I'm shouting, Steve, Steve. And he was round the other end, you know, there. Anyway, eventually he came round in the boat there, and he had to help me round there. And when we got back to where he had put the bivvy up there, and I took my welly off, and up there, I had broken my leg.
Ouch.
Right. So he said to me, right, well, we'll have to go to the hospital, the doctor. I says, no, I don't want to go there. You know, I said, I'm not going. He says, yeah, well, we'll have to go home. I says, I'm not going home. You know, I mean, I still feel like that. You know, that's exactly how it was there. He says, what are we going to do? I says, oh, we'll be all right. Anyway, my foot, my leg all swelled up. It was huge. So I had a T-shirt, and I wet it and I wrapped it around me foot. And of course I couldn't get my welly back on, so I thought, well, I'll try one of his boots. And I couldn't get my foot in that either. You know, it was, and it got where when I pushed my finger into me leg, it went up to the knuckle.
Jesus.
That's
just
how,
from all the
how it's
swelling,
swollen,
yeah.
you know. So anyway, fortunately, the swim we were in there, because I thought, wait, you know, I couldn't stand or nothing. I had to go around on my bum all the time, hitch around there. But there was a little tree at the back there with a low branch. And so for me, so I can go to the toilet. So he dug a big hole so I could sit on that branch and go to the toilet.
It was didn't have to go anywhere, did we? So we thought, well, we're just as well off here as anywhere.
That's exactly. He was really good there. So anyway, that was it. So then it came to New Year's Day, and Steve had to go and get the permits.
How long after this was it? So New Year's Day you would have been.
Well, we'd been in the swim for a week and not had a bite. It was absolutely dead, and I thought, well, fine,
Just for the record at this point, I would have been straight home. I would have gone straight, and I know you would have as well.
Well, anyone would.
Anyone would. Yeah.
Who wouldn't?
Yeah.
Who wouldn't go home or go to the hospital?
No.
Yeah.
So,
this one.
No, no. He says, I'll have to go get the permit.
Yeah, because I knew what the Garde de Pêche were like. That their greatest aim is to start the new year off with catching someone, and they knew there's going to be people on the lake without permits 2nd of January.
Yeah.
So I said, I'm going to have to go and get the permits because they'll be round. So, you was propped up. I said, we'll be fine. We haven't had a bite for a week, so we're all right.
Right. So he went off on the boat, and I watched him disappear under the bridge to go to Piers. And I'm just sitting there. Then all of a sudden, one of the rods went off. I thought, oh, God. So I hitched down on my bum to the water's edge, picked the rod up. I thought, oh, I've got a fish, all right. And I started to wind there, and I looked around. I thought, the net's up there.
Oh, no.
So what I did was I kept that a bit tight there, a little bit of line, hitched back up. I got the net, went back down to the water's edge, sat there, got the fish in the net, and sort of, with my good leg, put it across the handle of the net. And then he came back. He was coming under the bridge, but then the pompiers come in the speedboat, and they come whizzing up. Well, after they've gone and come there, you've got all these big waves come, right? I was absolutely soaked. The only thing that was dry was me foot, because I'd had me T-shirt wrapped around it, and I had a Tesco carrier bag wrapped, and that was dry.
What a sight to come back to, Steve.
Well, I literally came under the bridge expecting, nothing. Just expecting to come back, got the permits, thank God for that. And I looked and I thought, she's sitting in the lake.
on New Year's, on the 2nd of January.
And it was cold as well. It was gloomy time, it was cold. I thought, what on earth's gone on? And as I got closer, I could see the net, and I thought, I don't believe it.
So you weren't wrong earlier when you said every time you leave the swim.
Every time. Yeah, and that was, I think it was 43.12 from memory. It was a PB at the time before the 60, but 43.12.
Yeah.
Fair play. Very
true reward for sticking it out for a week with a broken leg in a foreign country, fishing in Cassien.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But then we come to go home. So, and what I had, we had like they have the shovel, when you go prospecting, right? That's when you go to the loo, you go prospecting.
Right, okay,
right?
yeah.
Digging for gold.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, I'll sort of resting on that. So I come to go home, and we get to the ferry. He said, you can't go on the ferry with that.
Dirty old show.
I says, well, how am I going to get on? I says, I need this. He says, so I was hanging on to him and the little handle on the ferry to try and get out. It took me ages. Anyway, when I got back home there, the next day, I went up to the hospital. And I said I had fallen off the step, at all.
The day before.
Yeah.
So they had a plaster on, and that was it.
Yeah, it was all right, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was
Healed up all right.
That was okay,
Did you get X-rays in the hospital to see how bad it was? break.
Yes, I mean that was all right, but I mean I had green plaster on it, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean it was the ankle, wasn't it? Your ankle, it was broken.
Yeah.
You know, it was broken.
Yeah, for sure.
Thought they. I mean that was the first time I broke that.
Yeah, so this is what I was going to say. This wasn't the first time this happened at Cassien, right?
No.
Well, that was the first time it happened, but it wasn't the only time.
Yes, this is what I mean. This wasn't the only time it happened.
Yeah.
No, you
we
did
went,
it on that
When we were
notorious trip that we went down with Ollie. God, blimey.
It was unbelievable, lad. I mean, it was lovely. We had a great time. I must admit, we had a lovely
good
time. I
time.
loved it.
Yeah,
I
so
think
this
we
was
did.
only a couple of years ago, and we'd planned to go and film you guys, and Ollie and Lou Porter at the time had travelled with you.
That's right, yeah.
Oh, it was all, you know, I remember saying to Ollie, I said, it's going to be hard, you know, it's always hard, but we always catch. I said, don't worry, we will catch. Blimey, famous last words.
Yeah, because you're quite confident in saying that, and am I right in saying there's only been like once or twice in the 30
I think
years?
three times in 30 years we've blanked.
Really?
You know, and that's a lot. We were sometimes having 3-4 trips a year.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of trips in those years as well. And it was always hard, don't get me wrong. It was never, very, very rarely was it easy. But we always managed to get on them and catch them, you know. So I was full of confidence that it was going to happen. But it was just, it was one of those trips. It was one of those.
Yeah, I mean, then lost the keys.
The
boat, the engine, wasn't it? First?
Ollie smashed his phone. He lost his van keys in the lake. We smashed our engine. The engine was out of commission. We couldn't catch a fish to save our lives. And top it all, you broke your leg again.
Again, yeah, just walking on the sand part. He said, "Oh, come and have a look." He says, "I've seen some board tracks." So I turned round, and as I turned around, the sand sort of gave way and slipped down, and my foot went underneath at the back there. And
straight
so
away you said, I've done my leg again.
Same ankle.
Same place, exactly the same place. So we went back to Camp in Dulac, where we were staying, where we had the gazebo. I mean, that was great. And the people who owned that, one of them had been a nurse, and she said, "Oh, you have to go to the hospital." I said, "Oh, I don't really want to go to the hospital." She said, "Yeah." So she rang the pompiers, who do both, they're like paramedics. So they came onto the site, and he put my leg in a big balloon thing, and they took me up to Grass. So I went up to Grass to the hospital, and I was in there. I had an X-ray. I had a plaster on, and I was ready to come out 20 minutes.
Blimey.
In 20 minutes.
Efficient, eh?
That's how easy it was. If only we'd known that the first time.
Yeah, very good point, actually. Oh, dear.
So, anyway, I said to this doctor, I mean, he spoke just a little bit of English. I said, how am I going to walk? I says, I was in a wheelchair then. And he said, the chemist, the chemist. I said, the Green Cross? He said, yes. So I went to there. We had to buy crutches for €180.
No way.
Then they gave me medication. Then had all these needles and stuff there. Steve had to inject me in the stomach.
Yeah, to avoid blood clots.
Right?
You've got to have a good stomach for that.
So well, he used to do that. Sometimes he was good. Sometimes he wasn't good. He used to hurt.
Yeah, depends what mood I was in.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was it. Then we managed to get back home.
Well, it was a pretty disastrous trip, but out of that trip came that video that you put together, Dan, and to this day it's the best video that
ever
of anything we've ever done.
It was a right bodge, but it's funny because we've always said, we spoke about it a few times.
Yes.
It was a bodge job, but without that all going wrong, I guess we would have never
would never have happened.
All that old footage, because we wanted to say, how can we make this trip worthwhile, worth something? And I think Ollie just mentioned, he's got loads of old footage on a camcorder. I said, does he?
I remember you asking me, and I said, well, yeah, I've got stuff. I hadn't looked at it for 15 years. I couldn't even remember what was on there, and I thought, blimey, mate, if you can do something with that, then fair enough.
And I remember putting it in my computer. I said to you earlier, putting it in my computer and laying it out and going, there's 6 hours of this stuff. Like, and it was 6 hours of just like the most Cassien nostalgic, amazing footage from, and I was just like, this is, and it couldn't have been better. It couldn't have been better, you know.
It was so lovely to bring it back to life, basically, because I'd forgotten what was on there. It was just put in a drawer, gathering dust.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, to have that brought back to life in a really good, you know,
it hadn't been any good
story.
to us.
Yeah, and I'll always be grateful for that.
Well, it was an absolute pleasure to do the edit, and I think I'm the most lucky because I got to see more than anyone's seen as well. So obviously people see that last 36 minutes or whatever it is, the final cut. I've seen, you know, all 6 hours and scrolled through it and everything. So and even earlier when we watched it again, just to refresh our memories, I was like, I'm going to Cassien next year. I have to go to Cassien.
Yeah, I mean, it's just put together so well. It really was, you know. And I know you said it already, but if you haven't seen it, just watch it, because not just because it's about us, but, you know, it's just put together so well. And everyone who's seen that said, God, that's amazing. You know, it's just really nice.
We mentioned Kevin Ellis earlier, and I've only ever known Kevin Ellis from that one photo, you know, the big... And, you know, that's, to me, what he looks like. He come up to me in Zola, I didn't have a clue it was. And he said, you did that video, didn't you? And I went, it's not even out yet. I don't know if you'd showed him or what. Or he might have come out the night before because we were in Zola at the time. And I was like, you know, when someone bumps into you and they know who you are, and I'm like, I should know this guy. And he said, I'm in it. And I was like, is he? And I obviously pictured him as that old photo, and I just assumed now he'd look the same, and obviously he's aged a little bit. And I was like, and it was quite nice to see him and meet this guy who I've spent the time editing and tracking the photo.
He was with us at Shumbar.
Yeah, was he really? A few weeks ago.
I mean, he's funny. He's a good friend. Yeah, and Parkour last year, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's funny.
But yeah, I mean, it was amazing. What a great thing come out of
everything.
Disastrous trip. Yeah.
It just shows you.
Just the same as the first time you broke your leg, something amazing had happened out of that.
It's true, isn't it? Just through sticking at it, actually.
Again, thinking about the van on that second trip.
Yeah, well, I know both of us have always had that mindset. You know, no matter what's put in front of you, just keep going. You know, never give up.
No,
never give up.
No, you can't.
There's times when we could have given up and come home early, and we stayed there, and something good's happened. You know, it's amazing how many times something good does come out of it. But you've got to stick at it. You know, there's that old story, hard work. It was fantastic. And all that.
Everybody remarks, it doesn't matter what country we go to. Even Bosnia remarked on that Marco.
Yeah, very special that.
So you know, awesome. Thank you very much. It was.
I know what it is. It's where you showed French matey up the hill. It's all your good karma coming back.
That's it.
Maybe, you never know.
Well, possibly, but you know.
Well, it's your old saying, you reap what you sow.
You reap what you sow. It's true, yes, yeah. And you never miss what you share with a friend.
Love it. Yeah. Love it.
We will speak a little bit about this as well, Steve, just the tactics that Cassien demanded, because you mentioned when you went on your first trip, it was just stuff in the car, get down there and see what happens. But how different is it to your everyday, well, not necessarily England, but with the snags, with the boulders as such, and the boat work? Is it a big learning curve? Is it a big jump for the everyday carp angler's knowledge to go to a place like that and be able to fish effectively?
Well, it is. I mean, the knowledge is out there now. That's the thing. You know, I mean, it's easy just to Google loads of stuff now and YouTube, and it's all there, so you can learn it all. You know, when we went, we was making it all up literally as we went along. You know, the crayfish, like I've already mentioned, the crayfish, the snags, the depths, these are all things we'd have to overcome by our own means, whereas now we've been there, done that, and other people can just pick up on what we've done. You know, big hard hook baits, you know, Nash make hard-ons now, you know, for that very reason. You know, they're out there to use for those reasons, to battle crayfish and nuisance fish. Stronger lines, stronger rigs, bigger, stronger hooks, sharper hooks, to combat all the rocks and the snags and all that type of stuff. Got the echo sounders to find the spots and the depths and all that. You find in an hour with an echo sounder what would take you a week with a rod.
And when you turn out, because it is very, the topography of the lake's crazy, right? It goes up and down, and there's bars. And what do you look for different things at different times of year? Obviously, you've got a wealth of knowledge now, 30 years of going there. You must know, okay, I'm going, it's July, this is what I'm after, and that sort of thing. So what typically are you looking for on an echo sounder?
Every swim's different, so you're always looking for different things. There's a few constants through the whole thing, and one of them is weed beds. Right. Weed beds are always good, but they always grow at a certain depth on Cassien, which is roughly around 15 feet. So once you get down to about 18, 20 foot, there's no weed after that. So after that, you're looking for any sort of feature. Basically, it could be just a little ledge, little point sticking out, group of snags even, fishing near a group of old tree stumps, something like that. But often the depths themselves are the features.
Right.
It's been a hard thing to explain to someone that when you go somewhere, a certain time of year, a certain depth will be where you want to be. Like I've been in sort of July time where everything's 40 foot. If you're fishing like 45, 46, you're struggling. 35, you're struggling. 40 foot, you're getting runs.
Yeah.
There's just whatever it is, the temperature, oxygen levels. That's where they feel happy. Then, as it would come on to sort of winter time, December onwards, you'd really struggle getting anything over 20 foot. Between sort of 10, 15 foot would be the depths where you're catching, and it makes sense because they're the warmest bits in the winter. They're the little shells that are getting hit by the sun and they're warming up, and that's where the fish want to be. So I was asked earlier today, actually, how much air pressure affects the fish on deep waters like Cassien, and it wasn't so much the air pressure as the actual time of year, water temperatures, water levels as well. When the water level's high, the fish are coming to the margins. When the water level's low, they go into the deep water. And so there was little things all the time to judge what you're doing, gauge how to approach it all. But depths were often, nearly always, the key to Cassien. Catching fish at Cassien was the depth. Find the depth where they are, and you're halfway there.
Yeah.
Tackle-wise, there's little things, obviously what I've just mentioned, the strength and the better gear. The one thing which made a huge difference over the years was a polyball on the line. Something as simple as that. But it made a huge difference because in the early days, you was fishing tight lines to your rig, but of course your rig could be over a rocky ledge, round tree stumps, down to where you was fishing. And when you got a run, it was a mad panic to get in the boat as quick as possible, get out above the fish as quick as you could. And invariably it would go left or right and it would be round a tree stump or a rock. As soon as you started putting a polyball on the line, it held the line up above all that stuff. And when you got a run, you just had the bait runner quite loose so the fish could just run, because invariably they would run to deeper water. As soon as I was over deeper water, you were safe as houses.
Yeah, it's strange too. A lot of people go, I'm fishing around snags here, I don't want them going anywhere, and they fish locked up. But I guess all that meant was they could just kite left and right and the line's in danger. But interesting, you say you let them run, the fish goes, and all that
swimming
does
away from danger.
The polyball's up in the water and the
Absolutely.
line's away from all of that.
Yeah.
And it went from a mad panic when you got a run to being totally relaxed about it.
Just let it go, let it go. And
Shuffling down the ledge on your bum, just
Exactly, yeah.
no problem here. I've got a polyball on.
That's right, yeah. God.
and I guess once you worked that out, the tactics hadn't changed for a long, long time.
Not really, no. There's nothing really changed over the last 10 or 15 years. The other thing which did gradually come into it over the years and was a big thing on Cassien is quality bait.
Right.
Absolutely, because in those early days, very early days, they'd eat anything, really. You just went down there with flavoured balls, you know, it's semolina, soy flour, as much Scopex as you could get in it, and you'd catch them because it was all brand new to them. It was all food. As time went on, they learnt quite quick what a good bait was and what a bad bait was. You went down there with a bag of ready-mades that were full of preservatives. I've spoken to people where they said, I've been here a week, you know, the fish just aren't here. And I thought, they are there.
Yeah.
Someone else will move in with good bait and catch within an hour. You know, it's that black and white. And there was a Dutch guy who used to fish. We got to know him quite well over the years, Jos. And he latched onto the quality bait thing very quick. And he was very, very good. He learned he didn't need loads of it. He would literally use 12 baits for each rod. That was all, 12 baits. And he would hold the fish in his swim. And I used to say to him, are you sure you're holding the fish with just that amount of bait? And he said, oh, yeah. And he was. And he would catch fish all the time he was there. He would move out, go home. Someone else would move in and the fish would just go. You know, and the quality made that much difference.
Yeah.
Really did. They knew what a good bait was.
And I guess also finding them in the first place, it's all well and good having the best bait, but on a lake that size, it must be pretty difficult to locate them. I know it is well stocked. There's a lot of fish in there, but I know you've got loads of knowledge in terms of what swims, what depths, and that sort of thing. But how do you initially, if you turned up now, you went out there on a session, do you have a good idea where they'll be at each time of year, or was it a case of I've got to find these fish first, only on days as well?
Never. Just never know where they're going to be.
Really, yeah.
It's the question I always get asked. You know, I'm going to Cassien in October or whatever. Where should I start? Where should I look first? And it's the impossible question, because the amount of times I've been there, well, all those years, you know, we can have some really good results one year, say in the West Arm. You know, we've done it in December. We go back, similar conditions the following year, same swims, nothing. They're just not there. And it was always that trial and error thing. You know, it is a trial and error thing because they don't show, so you're not really seeing them.
Oh, do they not? You don't poke their heads out that much?
Not that much, especially in winter.
Yeah,
you know, you just don't see them. Maybe one or two you might hear during the night, but basically you're just going on a whim. Even in the summer, you know, when we've been there day fishing, we're not seeing them, are we?
Yeah.
You know, it's just like you fish a morning or a day in a swim and then think, this ain't right. Where should we try tomorrow? And you're looking around and thinking, no one's been over there. We'll try over there or something.
Just what you fancy.
Yeah, literally like that. And you might try 4, 5, 6 spots before you find a fish. But then once you've found them, you start piecing it together. You know, those other 5 or 6 places you fished, you can eliminate them because there was nothing there. So you start narrowing it down. But it's the unpredictability of it is one of the big attractions. You know, if it was like, oh, you turn up in October, go to that point, that's where they are. There's none of that.
Yeah.
So it's different every time.
Yeah.
Good thing in a way as well, because if you were turning up knowing where they're going to be, and if it was stitched up, you might get a bit disheartened. But I suppose
Very true. Yeah, everyone would head for those spots, wouldn't they?
And also if it's like, oh, well, it's this time of year, the fish come out of swim 18 at 30 wraps at this time of year. It does get...
Yeah.
But going there, it's a fresh adventure every time.
Exactly.
Fresh start every time.
Yeah.
And quite often the best place to head for is the place where there's no anglers. You know, you can have a look around from all the vantage points and you think, well, all them 3 points are taken, that bay's full up over there, someone's down there, and you look at another area and think, there's no one there. Right. And that would be often the starting point where the least people were, because quite often the fish, you know, naturally they'd want to get away from pressure. So chances are they'd, you know, that's where they'd be.
Yeah.
So, Cassien then, been an incredible journey, and I'm sure it will continue to be an incredible journey. But if you had to, over the past 30 or so years, had to pick one moment that stands out the most, can you do it, first of all? Is there something that comes to mind straight away?
Yeah, well, I can. The first time in 1990 when we went up the which of the swimmer?
It was Third Point in the
Third
North Arm.
Point, that's right, yeah. On the corner, and I thought, it was lovely because you had a lot of sand in front as well. And then again, all we had was a lilo. And that was it.
Was this your first trip?
This is my first trip.
Yeah.
Right. Anyway, Steve, we had 3 rods, didn't you, at the
Yeah.
time? Yeah. I mean, I had just one. I think it was just one rod.
Yeah,
I
I'll
had
set
at the
you
time.
one up. You wanted there was a weed bed
Yeah,
Back-
right in front, and I
right in
thought,
front.
I like the look of that there, so he put me this rod up there. So I just got a stick.
Yeah, we didn't have enough alarms. It was
Right.
just literally on a fork
On
on
a
a stick.
So anyway, I was catching some tench. I mean, it was really, really nice. I was pleased with that there. Anyway, this, I think 2 or 3 days had gone by, and this night time was about midnight, because I mean, it was moonlight. And he sort of went, he says, "Did you bring your rod in?" And I said, I don't think I did. And you could hear this tick, tick, tick on there.
Yeah.
And he has a look there, and it was down to the backen. It was down to the backen. I thought, oh, God. So he says, right, so we had the boat there, so we got in the boat. And literally, I mean, there was snags here, big trees here, and bushes here, there, and reeds here. And we're down all over the place.
It was
Knit
the
one,
days
purl
before polyballs were it, and it was
Exactly,
it was
yeah.
round every snag out there.
We didn't know that day. So I think it was nearly an hour.
I was out there ages.
Really, it was terrible. And prior to that, when I had got my little rod out, I was catching the tench. I said, "Do you know what?" I says, "What I want to catch really is, and what I would like is a 12-pound mirror.
Yeah,
12-pound
said
carp
exactly
for me.
that. I just want to catch a 12-pounder.
That's what I said there, and that was it. Catch the tench. I was happy, but then when this incident happened, anyway, he managed eventually, after nip one, pearl one, he got the carp and brought it back, and he weighed it, and it was 12 pound.
How?
No. Now that to me, right, of all the fish I've caught, that is my pride and joy.
Oh.
That was my first fish from Cassien, a 12 pound.
Yeah, it's
And-
exactly what you wanted, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so that's not even just your favourite moment from Cassien. That's just your favourite fish you've caught.
And yeah, it just how it was, it was magical, We'd had a bottle of wine, hadn't we?
Yeah, it's probably why we missed the
Probably
line
why
being
I-
stripped off the reel.
Because I'm not very good at drinking. It's not my forte at all. But I think perhaps that was it there. But that is, and I remember that, and like people say, what have you had? What they, sometimes I can't remember. I think, but I'm not. You don't have to have a big fish. It's
Yeah.
nice if you do, all right, well and good. But I'm not one of these that's what I must have. What are they? I enjoy the fishing. I enjoy going out with Steve. I mean, lots of times, all right, I net his fish. I take his pictures and, and I do the video, and I'm very, very happy with that.
Good. It's what means the most to you. And
Exactly.
that's-
And that is
That's
just
amazing.
really, really lovely. But
43-pounders with broken legs, 60-pounders, but that 12-pound mirror was the
that-
amazing.
Really, and that is foremost in my mind out of all what I've had. I mean, and I've had a lot of fish.
Yeah, you've
I've
had loads, haven't you?
Really,
But yeah,
really
you always
lots.
that's the one you always say.
Yeah,
That's what it's all about, the most special one.
yeah, and sometimes people look at you, and think, "Oh, you're just saying that." I'm not. That
Now you
Well,
can tell.
you never know what's going to be the most memorable for you, do you? When you write about it in magazines or whatever, people always expect you to write about the biggest ones and all
Yeah.
that. But, personally, it's not always about the biggest
No.
one, is it? What actually means the most to you. So.
Yeah, I know Alan, whenever he's asked, his personal best is a brown trout he caught in New Zealand.
Oh wow!
Yeah, a little one like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, because it was just that moment,
Yeah.
that time, that everything.
It's hard
Exactly.
to relay that to other people because they're always
Yeah.
expecting, this massive linear or 350 is
Uh-huh.
what you had in Germany. And,
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it's a brown trout.
Yeah,
But,
yeah.
personal things are personal, aren't they?
You know.
I think Alan says it well. Actually, he said your personal best. Like he said, it's to you. It's not your biggest fish. It's not your.
Yeah.
But like PB
So
is
true.
like sort of misses because they should say what's your biggest carp when asking your PB to a degree. And I agree with that. Like, because your personal best is personal best. Like what means
Yes,
most
it's
to
in
you.
a different category altogether.
Yeah, that's very
That's a
true.
different
Actually,
page
Yeah,
of the
when you
book.
actually think of the meaning
yeah,
of that.
Yes.
not your
Yeah.
personal biggest.
Yeah,
Your
that's it. Yeah, personal
Yeah,
biggest,
yeah.
not
and
personal.
have you guys got a photo of that 12-pound mirror?
Yes,
Yeah, we'll stick it up then. So if people are watching this, they can
mind you,
see
it's a
it.
slide. Might have photo. Yeah. Oh, no, I've got it. I've got
Yeah.
it scanned.
Oh,
I've
wicked!
got
Yeah,
it. Yeah, no problem.
We'll get it up. We'll get it up.
But, as I say, 30 years and it's still
30
there.
years.
And I mean, I've caught
Yeah, it was
fish
30 years
every
ago.
country we've been to. Many, many countries.
Yeah, you've had your first Bosnian one, haven't you?
Yes. So
Really?
Last
that
week.
that was all right, yeah. But yeah, and grass carp
Yeah, big and 49.
and a
was.
catfish. I know people like, if that's what they like, fine. But I don't like the catfish. I don't like the grass.
Neither do I. Neither do I.
God.
And what about you, Steve? Same question to you, mate. What is there a moment that stands out the most for you?
I mean, there's so many at Cassien over the year. 30 years, there's a lot of good times and good fish have come and gone. But one that I always feel really fortunate to have had, or, it was over a period of a few days, was actually the last week of night fishing on there. Because it was a session that started off just like I'm describing. The year before, we'd fished in the West Arm, done really well. We'd had some really good fish, fished 3 or 4 different swims, caught from all of them. Thought, right, we'll have some more of that. Got back to the West Arm, weren't there. I caught one fish, which happened to be on my birthday, but it was a 25-pound common. That was all we had in the first 10 days. One bite, one little common. And we'd moved about, nothing was happening. And I said, we'll go back to the North Arm. We go on the second point. And you wasn't keen on moving. You said, no, give it a couple of days. I said, well, no, if we move now, then in a couple of days, we haven't got to move. We're settled. So I said, we'll do it now. And as we was going under the bridge, someone was just going on the second point. I thought, oh, no, we've missed it. And that can often be the make or break.
Yeah.
But first point was free. So I said, we'd go on the first point, which, has been the scene of quite a few different things for us. Little did we know it was just meant to happen. Like that night I had a 37 mirror. Next morning, had a 63.5 common, which I'd always wanted big commons and all that. But that actually topped the 61.5 mirror that I'd had in 1987. That was the first time I'd beaten it in all those years.
Really? So what year was this?
This was now 2012.
Wow. Okay.
So, I'd gone all those years from 1987 through to 2012 and had just beaten it first night back in,
25 odd years, yeah.
But it was the start of an incredible week's fishing. We had another, in that week, I had another 4 50s up to 58. I had a 58, a 56, a 55, 53. And then another mirror, 64.5. It was just like mind blowing. I'd gone from struggling all these years trying to catch big fish. All of a sudden, they were all there in front of me. I didn't have loads of bites, but everyone was a good one. I think the smallest one I had was 42, or, after that first initial 37, the next smallest one was 42, and then it was like all 50s and 60s. And it was just like, everything was, all my Christmases coming at once. It was absolutely fantastic. And it wasn't until we got home, and about literally 2 or 3 weeks after that trip, the news come through, night fishing finished. And I thought, wow. Talk about saving the best up until last. It was almost like Cassien was saying, well, you know, I've made you struggle over the years. Here you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Present.
Now see you later.
Happy Christmas.
Yeah,
So
and it was just an amazing week's fishing, and it was the last week of night fishing. Even though I didn't know at the time, that was it. That was the last night fishing we ever did on there. So saved the best until last. You know?
Yeah. So sorry, just to recap, you finished with 360s that trip.
No, 260s and 450s.
But broke your PB twice in a week, and then
broke the Cassien PB twice. Yeah. The biggest mirror and the biggest comment I ever caught from Cassien in those last few days.
No need to go to the 20 canal or whatever it is now to catch a 20-pound common or whatever it was. Yeah.
No, it was just incredible. It was, you know, you couldn't script it.
Yeah, and it's not one of those waters where you can go and expect to have large hits of big fish.
No,
from what I've seen, at least, you can catch fish and numbers of fish, but rarely is it like numbers of 50s, numbers of 60s. Like, I know you go to Shumbar or somewhere and you can expect to get big hits of big fish, but it's not like that on Cassien, is it?
No, Cassien, definitely not. It never has been. There was a couple of times over the years where there's been good results. I mean, the first time I took Tim Paisley there, you know, I mean, I put him in the bridge swim as I knew it would be good. And I remember it, between us in one morning, we had a 20, a 30, a 50, 40, a 50 and a 60 in one morning's fishing. I only had the 50 out of those, but he had the rest. You know, once he got on them, he was really doing well. But there was little periods throughout the years where it would be good. But mostly, I mean, there's people that have been going there 20, 30 years, have never had a 50 out of there.
Yeah.
Rob Howells was one. He went back last year, he caught a 60. I mean, he was there on that trip in 1987. You know, he's gone back over the years.
Wow.
That was his first fish over 50 pound out of there.
Wow.
You know, it's not easy. You know, people do catch them out there, but there's a lot of people that don't as well. You know, so when times like that did happen, and they were very rare, but God, they were gratefully received.
Yeah, and especially like you say, and you have said that for it to be your last chance saloon sort of thing of night fishing, to have that chance, and it all come good, which is amazing.
Unbelievable, yeah. And
it's so evident speaking to you too, like there is so many more memories that we haven't even touched upon, but so many more sessions, but 30 years of going, and like you say, not even just one session a year, several sessions.
We'd normally have at least a summer and a winter session.
Yeah.
And then maybe another one or two
in between.
And what also strikes me is like how good your memories are of where you were when this story happened and what swim you were in and this, and it's like I can't remember what I had for breakfast. Like, you know, and you retell these stories. It just shows how kind of dear to your heart Cassien has been over the years. And,
every trip was an adventure there, and every trip was memorable in all sorts of different ways. You know, some were good, some were bad, some were brilliant, but all very memorable in their own way. And they're all etched in the memory for sure.
Yeah.
But that's fishing, isn't it?
It's certainly Cassien.
Yeah.
Certainly Cassien.
Yeah.
www.letsgotocassien.com.
Yeah, let's go next year, Alf.
It does. To be honest, I'm not someone who really, like when you say venues and that, but when you hear it told like this, even throughout this stuff, I'm thinking, I really want to go now. Like, I really want to go, because before this, all the stories and that, I never would have said it would have been high up there on my list, but just listening to the stories, and it feels like a real part of carp fishing history that you two have been part of as well. So it's just like, just to go, almost like you did on your first trip, Steve, you just want to go to say you've been. That's sort of how I feel now. Yeah. Just to say I've been.
And everyone should, because you know, you'll get there and then you think, wow, now I see what they was on about.
Exactly.
And I do feel grateful to be part of that history. You know, I'm so grateful that we made the effort to go in those early days, because it was the start of something very special, you know, and it's still very special. It's an amazing place. It really is. And I'm just grateful that we found it, and we've shared all those fantastic trips there, because it's been brilliant.
Yeah, I
Still
mean,
is brilliant.
it's dubbed as the most iconic carp lake, or lake in carp fishing, and loads of lakes come and go, but that's just sort of stood the test of time. And even now, it's like I'm going to Cassien, or someone's gone and done this at Cassien. It's still so influential in this industry.
It's still there, isn't it? Yeah, it's managed to keep at a really high level all the way through those years. You know, the big fish, they've never got onto the real monsters, the 80, 90, 100 pounders, but it's a Cassien carp. Do you know what I mean? And people, when you say you've had this out of Cassien, a 50 pounder, everyone knows what that means.
Yeah.
You know, they all appreciate that. You know, when you go, when you've had one out of Shumba, oh, this is a Shumba 50. Oh, very nice. You know, okay, well done.
Yeah.
Show them a Cassien 50. Wow, Cassien 50.
And then, no doubt, after that, just stems into hours of stories about Cassien and how great it is.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, Cassien, it's like, you know, we had Redmere. You know, Redmere was, everyone still loves Redmere. You know, there's a book being written about Redmere now. You know, Redmere hasn't been brilliant in England for years, but it's got that history. You know, I went there and loved it for the history. But Cassien has got the history, but it's still a good lake as well. You know, it's still a lake with 70 pounders in it. So it's still there at the top. You know, it really is.
When was the last time you actually went?
Last year. Yeah, we haven't been this year, but we was there last year.
Yeah, and plans to keep going in the years to come?
We'll always keep going back.
Yeah, because we went from Cassien last year, went to the St. Croix.
Right.
Up in there. I mean, that was lovely as well. That's a little bit on par. Yeah, but it's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know my mouth keeps moving.
Well, it's all right, because I think we've kind of covered everything that we wanted to cover. It's been an absolute pleasure, and like I say, all I want to do now is just go and book it.
One day, Dan, one day.
Yeah, well, you'll have to go with us.
You'll have to go, and then
you'll have to go.
Social media / filming trip. I'll make up some sort of social. We'll have to do a live stream from Cassien.
Oh,
yeah, like it's compulsory. Otherwise, Nash is going to fall into the ground, and that's it. So we have to go.
Absolutely. Now we'll make sure you do it. Make sure we're part
definitely.
of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, and then you say, Steve, now I see what you're on about.
Oh yeah. If you were both there, that would make the experience even more special. I think.
I mean, I'm not going on my own. I need Steve to come put my rods out for me. Show me, like, this is a feature here. This will do your bites.
Yeah. But
That's it. We'll do it then.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, what we said, what we talked about there is actual what's happened. It's everything is all true. There's no edges on it, no frilly edges or no
no spinning a story or anything. This is all.
That's exactly. I mean, there's lots more.
Yeah, I can imagine. I bet there's.
Yeah, there's loads more.
Loads more.
But it's been lovely, sort of reminiscing, really.
Yeah. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Thank you for coming in, and I hope that the listeners have enjoyed it. I'm sure they will have, and that's one of many other stories that we will no doubt get you back in to tell in the future.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, we've had so many good years down there, and still plenty more to come. But out of all the lakes, that's the one constant for all of our fishing. Other lakes have come and gone. You know, the rainbows, the shantycocks, or whatever. We've been there, done that. Cassien's been there for it all, and it always will be.
When you see it, when you actually come in and you see it, it's
nothing else like it.
You feel exactly how we feel.
Yeah,
it's because it's just
special.
Oh, and the water is like a turquoise. Some of it's beautiful. I mean, you can say don't drink it. You can drink it. We use that water. We boil it.
Really? That's
Roger Smith used to just put this cup in the water and drink it, and carry. So
I'll bottle it and bring it home.
Put it on the shelf for the podcast studio. What's that? It's a bottle of Cassien water.
Exactly, that's right. Yeah, no fizz.
No, thanks very much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure
Thank
as always.
you. Yeah, it's been great.
Look forward to the next one.
Nice one. Cheers.